Now this stuff might look complicated to you, but it's already rules that you know. Fraction rules and exponent rules. So we're just taking laws and rules that you're already used to and we're putting it together in a more complicated problem. So don't stress out. And we're going to use the distributive property to do this. Remember, the distributive property takes the thing on the outside and multiplies it by each term on the inside. Now we're just multiplying fractions. Now don't freak out about multiplying fractions because multiplying is quite nice. Remember, we don't need to rename or do any common denominators. Multiplying is pretty straightforward. So there's two ways you can do this. I tend to do them in my head, but if you are wanting to slow it down for a while until you feel really comfortable, you can do it in a couple steps. Meaning you can actually write this times this. So you would write this. There's the first multiplication, this times this. You can actually write it out in case you're having trouble keeping it straight in your head. And then the subtraction, and then times this one. So it's going to take more room, but never be afraid of using too much room. This is if you might not have been able to do this in your head. Now let's see. This was easy because it's literally right here, so you visually can see this. When you multiply x times x, you get, remember we multiply straight across when we're doing numerators and denominators. So you might see, oh, x squared times x squared is x to the fourth. And y squared times y to the 1 is y cubed because we add those exponents. Now I will go faster on the next questions, but I'm really slowing down so you understand. And then subtract, we've got x squared times 3y cubed. Now none of those have the same base, so we can't really do anything extra. We would just say, I like to put the coefficient out in front, and the book does too. We're going to say 3y. That's weird. That's what the book did. You could put y first, but I like to go alphabetical. So 3x squared y cubed, and then we take care of the denominators, y squared times m. And there we go. And I must have... Now we're actually not quite through, even though it feels like we should be. I'm looking at these and I notice this. That means we can simplify this fraction. We've got y's on top and bottom. And we can take the bigger exponent and subtract the bottom one. So 3 minus 2. Or think you've got 2 y's down here and 3 up here. If we canceled out all the pairs, we would have 1 y left on top and no more y's on here. So I kind of write it like that. So I've got a visual, and the final answer is x to the fourth over y cubed minus 3x squared over m. So it's rules you know, but a lot of areas to make mistakes. So you do need to slow it down and use plenty of room on your paper. In fact, if you didn't have enough room on this, you can always go onto scratch paper if I don't have enough room on the notes. I try, but I'm not always great at it. Now we're going to use the distributive property to expand this. M over z times these two quantities. Now notice this doesn't have a denominator, but it actually does because we always have an invisible 1 as a denominator. So I'm not going to do this step. I'm just going to do it in my head. I'm going to go, okay, MAXP. Now they're all different. So I'm just going to say, I'm peeking in the, oh, they simplified. Yeah. So MAXP over ZMK minus, now we just multiply m times the top here. So that all that does is make this m become a m to the fifth. So 2m to the fifth p to the fourth over z. Now some things can be simplified. I see that we have an m and an m, And that was kind of easy because you just cross them out. So what we're left with, the final answer is AXP over ZK minus 2m to the 5th p to the 4th over z. Now some of you might wonder why we can't just subtract these when we're done, so we have one final answer. Well, the rules of subtraction are that you have to have the same denominator in order to add and subtract. Do these have the same denominator? They do not, so they cannot be added or subtracted. Could we do it the way we do other fractions and rename them so that they can be added and subtracted together? We can, but guess what? They're not making us do that this lesson, so enjoy that, because could take up half a page. But it's fun, so half a page doesn't mean bad, it just means we have to have more space. All right, the next one, example 3. Go ahead and you try this. Remember, this is over 1, and see if you can get this one figured out on your own. In fact, pause me right now. Okay, so hopefully you have your final answer, and let's see if we match. AB times XAB would be XA squared B squared. C squared times C is C cubed. Plus, and I don't see anything that can simplify there. Now I'm on multiplying those two terms. So AB times 2BX. So it looks like the B is going to become squared. So it's going to be 2AB squared X over C squared. Again, nothing can be simplified there, and these are not like terms. Or, sorry, these don't have the same denominator, which is helpful. Here we're going to have 4AB over C to the 4th. And again, nothing else can be simplified. So it looks like, and none of these have the same bottom, so it looks like that is our final answer. Even though that looks kind of ugly and jumbled up, make sure your exponents match mine. Okay, this is very important. We've got minus signs and negative exponents, and it's very confusing. So let's take this step by step. 4 squared. Now there's nothing funky about that. There are no negatives, so 4 squared just means 4 times 4. So you would know the answer to that is 16. The rest of these answers are either going to be positive or negative 16 or positive or negative 1 over 16. Okay, because we have negative exponents. So let's take care of that first. We have a negative exponent there. That is the same. Remember, we want to deal with the negative exponent first. That means this 4 should go downstairs to have a positive exponent. So these are equivalent statements. Once it's like this and the negative is gone, we can kind of relax and go, okay, that's the same as 1 over 4 times 4. Okay, so that was kind of nice. Now it's just going to get meaner, right? How about this one? Negative 4 squared. Now, you have to be very careful. What is negative? Is it the exponent or the number out in front? And does that number get to play? Basically, if you have, if you can cover up the negative without running into any parentheses, like I'm doing, then that negative is not squared. What this really means is this: negative times 4 times 4. So this be very careful with that. So that's negative 16. Next one. Now, can I cover up the negative without running into a parenthesis? No, that means that negative gets to be part of the squaring. So what that equals is negative 4 times negative 4. So that actually squares these negatives, whereas the last one you only had one negative. Now that's positive 16. So let's get back into negative exponents, and it's going to get trickier. Remember, this negative in front does not get to really do anything, just still sit there. So what we do is that negative is there, and 4 to the negative 2 is the same as 1 over 4 squared, right, as we set up above. So that's the same as negative 1/16. So just remember, this was never squared, this negative out in front. Now, he does get to get squared, so what that equals is 1 over negative 4 squared. And negative 4 squared means negative 4 times negative 4, which is a positive 16. So really study these and see how, really try and understand this, because it's going to just keep coming up, and it's going to get frustrating if you keep making mistakes on those. Make sure that you've got that solid. And now we have practice. So go ahead and, if you want, shut me off or pause me, and then we will do these together, or just check your answer in the answer key. And you may begin now. So what I get here is x to the 4th over y squared minus 3x squared y squared over y times m. Now these can be canceled out. I got a y down here and 2 up here. So what happens is that goes away and that goes away. So we have, oops, I wrote y and then got confused. So we have x to the 4th over y squared minus okay, so make sure that matches up with you. And yeah, next time I will probably give us more space. Okay, AMXM, so the m's get squared, so it's AXM squared. Or if these are in different order than then that's okay. And this is over AB cubed minus 3A squared BM over B squared plus 6AM squared over B to the 4th. Now I see that this can be simplified and these can be simplified. So our final answer is xm squared. Now the book has m squared x, same thing, okay? Neither one is more right than the other. Now the b went away on top, leaving us with one b on the bottom. And the last one is just nothing simplified there. So again, I'm not creating any new rules or doing anything different. I'm just following the laws of exponents. All right, I hope you did these ones right. They're really tricky, but good practice. All right away, this negative is not in parentheses, so that should be a big red flag. Not in parentheses. So what that equals is this. So because there was one negative, the answer is going to be negative 1 over 16. We have one negative in the problem and no more. So negative 1/16. The next one is 1 over negative, oh, sorry, I'm going to do this different. I just heard a dog bark. I got distracted. So in this case, it's this just goes upstairs, right? It's the same as this. It's just started out. So now we've got, you could even leave it like this for now. It's 4 squared over negative 1, if that helps. Hold that negative. But that really means negative 4 squared, which equals negative 16, because this negative is not squared. Okay, a lot of you want to make this positive. It is not. It's negative. Be careful. Okay, letter E. I'm going to take care of this last. I'm going to just leave it out in front, and it looks like this goes down there and becomes positive. So now we've got negative 1 over, okay, 4 cubed. Or there's 3 negative 4s all multiplied together. So negative 4 times 4 times 4 or negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 is negative 64. Now we've got a negative on top and bottom. This is going to drive some of you nuts, so that we end up with a positive. Here's another way you could have done it. All right, I'm going to have 3 negatives and 1 negative. Altogether in this I have 4 negatives, so I should end up positive. In fact, let's look at that up here. We have 1 negative, so the answer is going to be negative. The last one, let's try and figure out if it's going to be positive or negative. Okay, here we're going to have 3 negatives plus another one, so 4 negatives. So we're going to have a positive answer when we're done here. In fact, that can once we know it's positive, you can really just say, well, then we can simplify it to this, because we know the answer is going to be positive. And that equals 4 cubed, and that equals 64. I know these are tricky. I think maybe the best way to do it is to really determine whether you're going to have a positive or negative answer first, and then take care of the exponents. All right, good work today, and take a deep breath and go ahead and do your exercises.